Stop being attached to the person you love. Love is a beautiful thing. It makes us feel happy, content, and fulfilled. But sometimes, love can be difficult to find or maintain. When we're in love, we tend to be hypersensitive to any negative signals our partner might send our way. We start to doubt ourselves and our ability to please them, and that's not healthy. It's important to remember that not everyone is going to love us back. It's okay to accept this and move on. If someone doesn't love us, it doesn't mean they're a bad person. They might just be incompatible with us, and that's okay too. Remember that there are plenty of other people in the world who would love to be in a relationship with you. So don't settle for anything less than what you truly deserve. Stop trying to make the person who doesn't love you change. When someone doesn't love us, it can be really tough to accept. We might try to make them change their mind, or we might try to fix things between them and us. But that's not going to work. The person who doesn't love us is going to stay the way they are. Trying to force them into a relationship that's not going to work is only going to make us feel frustrated and resentful. It's better to accept that our partner isn't interested in us and move on. Accepting that someone doesn't love us is the hardest thing we'll ever have to do, but it's the best thing for our well-being. Signs you're in love with someone who doesn't return your feelings. If you're in a relationship and you don't feel the same way about your partner as they do about you, it's time to face the truth. You may be in love with someone who doesn't return your feelings. Love is a beautiful thing, but it can also be incredibly fragile. If you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't feel the same way about you, it can be hard to stay attached to them. You may find yourself longing for something that doesn't exist, but it's important to remember that love is a two-way street. If your partner doesn't feel the same way about you, it's important to let them go. It's tough to open up to someone and then have them walk away, but it's the best way to heal and move on. If you're in love with someone who doesn't return your feelings, it's time to take a step back and figure out what you need to do to heal. 1. You may be unconsciously trying to control your partner. If you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't feel the same way about you, it's possible that you're unconsciously trying to control them. You may feel like you need them to love you, or that they need to change before they can love you back. But if your partner doesn't feel the same way about you, it's time to let go and accept that. 2. You may be holding on to hope that things will change. It can be tough to let go of hope, but if your goal is to heal and move on, it's important. You may think that if your partner changes their mind, or if things between you two get better, then you'll finally feel at ease. But if your partner doesn't feel the same way about you, it's time to face the truth and move on. 3. You may be confused and overwhelmed by all of this. If you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't feel the same way about you, it can be hard to process all of this information. You may feel lost and confused, like you don't know what to do or where to go. But it's important to remember that you're not alone. There are people who care about you and who want you to heal and move on. 4. You may be withdrawing from your friends and family. If you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't feel the same way about you, it's possible that you're withdrawing from your friends and family. You may feel like they won't understand or that they'll judge you. But it's important to remember that you have a support system, no matter what. Reach out to them if you need to, and let them know how you're feeling. Stop being attached to the person who doesn't love you in return. It can be really tough when you're in a relationship where one person doesn't seem to reciprocate your love. It feels like your whole world is crashing down, and all you can do is mope around thinking about how you could have made different choices. But don't worry, there are ways to deal with unrequited love, even if the other person doesn't seem to be interested. First of all, it's important to remember that you're not alone. There are plenty of other people out there who are feeling the same way as you are. And chances are, they've been through some tough times too. Next, it's important to talk to someone about what's going on. It can be really difficult to deal with these kinds of emotions on our own, and talking to someone can help us process the situation more effectively. Talking to a therapist or counselor might also be a good idea, depending on what kind of support you need. And also, it's important to keep your spirits high. Whether you're spending time with friends or watching your favorite TV show, try to find things that make you happy. That'll help take your mind off of the person who doesn't love you in return. Ultimately, the most important thing is to remember that you're worth loving. You should never give up on love just because it's been difficult in the past. If you do, you'll only wind up feeling even more despondent and alone. So keep fighting, and don't forget to remind yourself of all the amazing things about love. You know that person who you used to be head over heels in love with, but now they just don't seem to be into you the way you once were. Maybe they've been distant lately, or maybe they haven't called you in a while. It's tough when your relationship with the person you love starts to change, but it's even more heartbreaking when it feels like that change is permanent. Why we get attached to people who don't love us. Most of us get attached to people who don't love us in return for a few reasons. The most common one is because we mistakenly believe that these people will make us happy. However, this is rarely the case, and in fact, these relationships usually lead to pain and suffering. Another reason we get attached to people who don't love us is because we're afraid of being alone. We may believe that by getting close to someone who doesn't care about us, we'll be safe and secure. But in reality, being with someone who doesn't care about you only creates more pain and suffering. The bottom line is that getting attached to people who don't love us is a recipe for disaster. When they inevitably leave us, we feel devastated and we have no idea how to move on. So if you find yourself getting attached to someone who doesn't seem to care about you, try to remember these 3 things. 1. They don't love you back, no matter how much they might pretend otherwise. 2. Getting close to them only creates more pain and suffering for both of you. How to let go of the person who doesn't love us. In order to get over someone who doesn't love us, we need to start with accepting that they don't feel the same way. We need to move on and focus on ourselves. We can't keep obsessing over what could have been if only this person loved us back. We need to focus on our own happiness and be grateful for the relationships in our life that are worth keeping. Don't be too hard on yourself. No matter how things are going, you're never actually done with love. In fact, sometimes the best thing you can do is to let go and start fresh. That means letting go of the person who doesn't love you in return. Of course, it's not always easy to do this. It can be really hard to abandon a relationship that we've invested so much emotion in. But sometimes, the only way to move on is to face our fears head on. And that means letting go of the person who doesn't love us in return. Ultimately, the best thing we can do for ourselves is to focus on our own happiness. And that means letting go of the person who doesn't love us in return. How to let go of someone who doesn't love us. There are a few things that you can do to let go of someone who doesn't love us. 1. Accept that they don't feel the same way. We need to start by accepting that this person doesn't love us the way we love them. If we focus on what could have been, we'll only be hurting ourselves further. 2. Move on. We need to focus on our own happiness and be grateful for the relationships in our life that are worth keeping. If we obsess about the person who doesn't love us, we'll only be miserable. 3. Don't be too hard on yourself. No matter how things are going, you're never actually done with love. In fact, sometimes the best thing you can do is to let go and start fresh. That means letting go of the person who doesn't love you in return. 4. Face your fears head on. And that means letting go of the person who doesn't love us in return. The steps to letting go of the person who doesn't love us. When we are attached to the person who doesn't love us in return, it becomes very difficult to let go. We may think that they will change their mind if we just try harder, or that if we only wait long enough they will come around. However, these thoughts only serve to keep us anchored to the person and make it difficult to move on. Be honest with yourself about why you are holding on. Do you hope that they will change their mind? Are you afraid that you will be alone? Recognize that these are all reasonable reasons to stay attached, but don't let them control your decision. Set realistic expectations for yourself. If you believe that the person who doesn't love you will change their mind in a matter of days or weeks, then your expectations are likely unrealistic. Accept that this person isn't going to suddenly fall in love with you, and move on accordingly. Address any underlying issues or fears that are keeping you attached. If you are afraid of being alone, work on addressing those fears. Make a decision to let go, and then take action. Start by acknowledging that you are attached to the person, and then begin to identify steps that you need to take in order to move on. This may include talking to them, writing them a letter, or breaking up with them in a clear and concise way. Remember that it is okay to feel sadness and pain at this point in your life, but don't allow these feelings to keep you anchored to the person who doesn't love you. Let go, and find someone who will love you for who you are. If you are struggling to let go of a person who doesn't love you, please reach out for help. There are many resources available to help you through this difficult process. Ultimately, the best thing we can do for ourselves is to focus on our own happiness. And that means letting go of the person who doesn't love us in return. How to move on from a relationship that doesn't work. Talk to someone you trust about what's going on. Talking out your feelings can be very cathartic and help you start to understand why the relationship isn't working. Avoid self-pitying thoughts. Feeling sorry for yourself will only make things harder. Instead, try to focus on overcoming the challenges of this situation. Reach out to friends and family for support. They'll be able to give you words of encouragement and share their own experiences with breaking up with someone. Take some time for yourself. This may mean taking a break from social media or spending time alone at home. You need time to heal and recharge your batteries, so don't feel guilty about taking this step. In the end, it's up to us to decide how we're going to deal with the situation. But one thing is for sure, it's important to focus on our own happiness. And that means letting go of the person who doesn't love us in return. It's normal to feel a bit sad and lonely after someone you care about leaves your life. But don't be attached to that person. They are not worth your time or energy. If they do not love you back, then there is no point in staying in a toxic relationship. We all have the power to change our thoughts and feelings, so if you're feeling down after a breakup, know that it's completely natural and that you will get through this tough time. May God help you in Jesus' name. Amen.